Welcome to the Personal Pension Radio Podcast, where you get unconventional insights into wealth building and retirement that actually work. Discover data-driven strategies and learn from a wealth of experience so that you can take your retirement to the next level. Now, here's your host. He was once bitten by a harbor seal, the income engineer, Kraig Strom.
Okay, welcome back to Personal Pension Radio. Glad to have you here. Just a quick thank you to our audience. Just wonderful to have everybody supporting the show all over the United States. And again, still got some listeners all the way out to the Philippines, all the way out to even some of the Chinese provinces, Europe. Just amazing how small the world is nowadays. It is just absolutely amazing how small the world is. So welcome back to Personal Pension Radio. If you haven't been here before, Personal Pension Radio is all about helping you optimize retirement income. Optimizing retirement income, that's a key phrase to pay attention to, because what are we saving money for in 401ks and IRAs and savings accounts and stocks and bonds, whatever it is you're doing? Why are we saving that money if not to someday be able to stop working 9 to 5 or 9 to 9 and draw an income from those assets? So if we don't have a plan to optimize retirement income, well, then you're just subject to the conventional wisdom out there. And frankly, most people are very disappointed when they get to that conventional wisdom as it comes to planning for income. We're going to talk about that today. I'm going to give you a website and a homework assignment. And I really hope that you get out there and actually check it yourself, because once you do, you're going to want to come back and get some help to change it. So optimizing retirement income does not happen with a product. It doesn't happen with a mutual fund. It doesn't happen with life insurance or stocks or bonds. Real estate doesn't fix retirement income. Annuities don't fix retirement income. None of these things by themselves can help you actually optimize retirement income. You actually have to have an integrated approach. Each of these things, whatever they might be, need to be integrated together to fully maximize the benefits and the efficiencies of each one of these things. And thanks to the death of private pensions, the devaluation of Social Security benefits, and other undeniable factors like inflation and increased taxes, America is legitimately in a retirement income crisis. If you don't have a retirement income plan, you're in for a rude awakening. See if I can speak this morning. You're in for a rude awakening when it comes time to get into retirement, because the standard Wall Street conventional advice is actually quite depressing, if you ask me. So we're focused on helping you prepare to pack your bags correctly for both sides of the retirement journey. Remembering that accumulation, saving money in your 401ks and IRAs, investing, that is the accumulation phase. We need it. You've got to have it. But if you don't have a plan for the distribution phase of your journey, if your bags aren't packed right, you're going to get to the top of that retirement mountain and realize, the downhill doesn't look that great. Okay? Now, quick disclosure, I am not an attorney. I'm not a CPA. I am a certified financial planner, professional, as the officials tell me that I have to add that. I'm a certified financial planning professional. Please don't act on advice that you hear on this show or from financial entertainers on the radio, on TV, and magazines. Remember, you've got to meet with somebody that's qualified to go through and really ask the right questions to get to know you and your specific situation. You've got to meet with a qualified financial advisor. And now, what do I mean by qualified? So, qualified, if you use me as an example, I am licensed as a certified financial planner professional. I'm also a chartered financial consultant. I also have my life insurance licenses. I also have my securities and investment licenses. I'm an investment advisor representative licensed. So I'm licensed left, right, up, and down, which means I'm also regulated, monitored. That means that there is a system in place to make sure that licensed professional financial advisors are giving good advice, that they're giving the proper time to each of their clients to make sure that they're asking questions and getting to know them and not just throwing things on the table without actually getting to know anybody. So there's my disclosure, a little longer than usual. I actually want to go through 3 segments today, so I'm going to jump right in. I'm going to add a new segment to the show. I want to get your feedback on it. So go to personalpensionradio.com and give me your feedback if you like the additional 3rd segment. But let's jump right in. The first segment is Watch Your Step. Watch Your Step is just pay attention to the news that's out there. And I really want the audience, I want you to be well trained so that you can pay attention and start asking your own questions as you're looking into retirement advice and you're searching Google, right? Isn't that where everybody finds their information nowadays? We find it on Google, right? So I want to make sure that you're asking the right questions. So this particular article actually caught my interest as someone had asked me about retirement income, and that's how the conversation began here just recently. Retirement income is on my mind all the time, but I actually put a Google search in, and an article came up on Investment News. So Investment News had this particular article, and then another one popped up here that I thought was very interesting, had an interesting headline: Why Your Withdrawal Rate Matters More Than Your Asset Allocation. Now, that was an interesting headline to me. That was kind of a detailed headline right into, it sounded like, the kind of stuff that I talk about on this podcast and with my clients. So the title of the article from Walter Undergrave, he actually is the editor-in-chief of Real Deal Retirement. I'll have a link to that in the show notes. Now, the title again was Why Your Withdrawal Rate Matters More Than Your Asset Allocation in Retirement. Now, we've talked about that here. I'm not going to go into the asset allocation versus withdrawal rate as much today. But I do have an issue with the article in general. That here's the quote. The quote from the article that really got me was, as long as you adopt a reasonable initial withdrawal rate, say 3% to 4%, you should have plenty of leeway for choosing a stocks and bond mix you feel comfortable with throughout retirement. So the idea here was, what's the proper asset allocation is what you usually hear investment advisors talk about, right? So the answer to retirement is a pool of investments that is diversified and balanced between stocks and bonds and et cetera, et cetera. Well, if you know anything about this show and if you've paid attention and done your own homework, you know that that's actually wrong. So withdrawal rate is the most important factor. That in reality, the allocation of your investments does not matter nearly as much as how much you're attempting to draw from your investments. So let's look at this quote again. And I have an issue with this. I have to be honest with Mr. Updegrave here. I have an issue. The issue is this. He says, as long as you adopt a reasonable initial withdrawal rate. Now let's stop right there. What does that mean, reasonable? And then he says 3 to 4%. Now, you've heard me talk about it on this show, and if you haven't, go back and listen to the other episodes. Look for the 4% rule. There's a number of episodes where I've covered this. But standard conventional wisdom from the investment community for the last nearly 30 years has been draw 4% from your investments in retirement, and you should be okay. Well, wait a minute. If you've got $500,000 in your retirement account, is it reasonable to think you can actually live on $15,000 to $20,000 a year? Really? 3 to 4%? If you've got $1 million in your retirement account, are you really going to live comfortably, reasonably on $30,000 to $40,000 a year? Who says that's reasonable? Personally, I think that's actually ridiculous that the financial community has adopted this idea of telling people they should be prepared to settle for less. They should be prepared to live on less. So reasonable, I personally don't agree with that. It's my opinion, of course. I have to keep saying that on this podcast to make sure that you know that it is my opinion. Maybe you look at $1 million in your retirement account and you think, wow, I wish I had $1 million and $40,000 a year would be okay. Well, what if you didn't get to $1 million in your retirement account? Are you still going to be okay with $24,000? $15,000 a year, right? This idea that a reasonable withdrawal rate is 3 to 4%, I personally believe is wrong. That if you balance your savings correctly, if you balance across all of your savings correctly, using the right mix of investments and actuarial assets like life insurance and annuities in the right balances, it can't be one or the other over another choice. It has to be the right balance, that you can achieve retirement incomes that are 30 to 50+% higher than these 3 to 4%, I'm doing air quotes, reasonable withdrawal rates. So I'm going to encourage you to run your own numbers. So here's your homework. Really pay attention to this. I'm going to put out probably the most serious call to action that I've done in a long time. Go and run your own numbers using conventional wisdom and reasonable withdrawal rates. And I want you to just find out if you like them. Find out if you like reasonable and conventional advice. So Vanguard offers a Monte Carlo simulation. This is a retirement nest egg calculator. It's free, so there's no reason not to do it. Don't be afraid, just go do it, okay? The link will be in the show notes, but it's easy to find. You just search retirement nest egg calculator, and the Vanguard website will pop up. And then you can easily put your anticipated retirement balance, whatever you might have in your savings and investments, you can put that in the calculator as your starting number. And then you can put in how many years that you and maybe your spouse anticipate living in retirement. And then you can put in how much you anticipate drawing from your account. Remember, withdrawal rate. But make sure that you use that reasonable 3 to 4% range. And then find out what the chances are that your money will actually last as long as you live. And then maybe experiment and say, I want to run the number at 5%. Maybe I want to run the number at 6%. Find out what the chances are that your money will last as long as you live. Okay, run your own numbers and then tell me if you're excited about conventional wisdom and reasonable withdrawal rates. I'm guessing the answer is going to be no. The next step will be come back to Personal Pension Radio, contact me, and get an income analysis done from my perspective and the way that I help my clients design their retirement income plans, and see which number you like better. I'm guessing that you're going to like my number better, but it takes an actual plan to make it happen. And I'm here to help. If you've got questions and you want to see your retirement income analysis, I can run your analysis and compared to what it could look like. And it's amazing. You'll hear about that in segment 3 today, the new segment. And I really want to encourage you to do that because I like the article. I mean, it's good. It gets people thinking. But again, it runs people back to the same tired answers for the last 30 years, this 3 to 4% rule. Who came up with that? Why do they continue to perpetuate that? Someone asked me recently, why do we continue to only hear about the 4% rule? Why? Well, I've asked this question before. It's a rhetorical question. Does the investment community have any financial incentive to teach us how to take our money out of the system? Right? There's no financial incentive for Wall Street in general, the financial community, to teach us how to take our money out of the financial system. So there's very little education around it. And isn't it convenient that the message has been, we've got to teach people to settle for less than they hoped for because we don't know how long they're going to live, and we, ultimately, maybe, do they really just want that money to stay in there longer? I don't know. Again, I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist, but 3 to 4% has been the mantra for the last, like I said, 30 years, let's say. And isn't that convenient, right? It's very low withdrawal rates, and the message has been, you should prepare to live on less. You should be ready. You don't need as much money to live on in retirement, so you can live on less. And speaking of that takes us to segment 2 today. Segment 2 actually is a topic that I'm going to come back on probably several times right now, because as I'm recording this, we're approaching tax time in the U.S., our favorite time of the year. Now, here's a big question. I ask this whenever I speak at various events. I ask this of prospective clients, Will taxes be higher or lower in the future? What do you think? Right? As you're driving along, listening to this podcast, or if you're riding your bike, running, raise your hand if you think taxes will be higher in the future. Right? See, look around. Everybody's hand is up. Okay? Everybody's hand goes up. I never get anybody saying, oh, taxes will be lower. Right? And someone, now I will correct that. I do have one person who says that taxes will be lower in the future. And I've had that one person who says that taxes will be lower. Let me add a little nuance to the question. Do you believe that government taxes and fees will be higher in the future? Right? The answer then would always be yes, because if they don't call it a tax, they call it a fee. Right? They call it a premium change on your Medicare or something where the tax goes up somewhere in the system. So most people will say taxes are higher. Okay? So this is an article I want to reference in Investment News. Now, Investment News had an article specifically about retirement income hit with the highest effective tax rate. That was the headline of the article. And again, as with all things, it's going to be linked in the show notes. So the article is titled, Retirement Income Hit with Highest Effective Tax Rate. So stop for a second and remember what we just talked about above with the draw rates and such, that the conventional financial advice is to plan to be in a lower tax bracket when you retire, because you're not going to need as much money to live on, and it'll be okay. You'll have a lower income tax too. Well, that's not true. I haven't found that to be the case. So what the article says, it's actually a quote here from Mary Beth Franklin, who wrote the article. The quote is, some Social Security recipients are subject to the highest marginal income tax rates in the country, topping, you ready for this, 55% in some cases, depending on their other sources of retirement income in a given year. What's even more shocking, she says, it's true. So you can read all about it, and her research and the information for her article is linked in the show notes. But highest marginal tax rate, some as high as 55%. That's incredible. So why is that? Why does that actually happen? Right? How is it possible that you can get into retirement and be in a higher tax bracket than you ever imagined? Well, let's think about this for a second. During your working years, family years, growing families and getting towards retirement, let's think about all of the various tax offsets that you might have at your disposal. So tax offsets are things that legitimately lower your taxable income along the way up the accumulation side of your journey. So number one, let's say, might be a mortgage. You might be paying for a 30-year mortgage on your home, and a mortgage on real estate, one of my favorite things, real estate, the mortgage is legitimately a tax offset. So you get to take the interest on the mortgage, and in most cases it gives you a very nice income offset against your taxable income, because the government likes to incentivize people for buying a home. So ideally, in retirement, will you have a mortgage that would offset your income? No. Now, there are some financial advisors and financial entertainers out there that are talking about how great it is to have a 30-year mortgage in retirement. I personally, my opinion, I think that's insane, but that's just me. So let's just go back and say most people that I talk to don't want to have a mortgage in retirement, and therefore you will not have the income offset, that taxable income offset of mortgage interest. So that's one thing. Number two, while you're climbing the retirement mountain, accumulating money, you might be saving money in a 401k or an IRA, which is a tax-deferred, really important, tax-deferred vehicle. Now, I say this, and I want to make sure to clarify. I say the idea that anybody tells you that an IRA or a 401k or a simplified employee pension is tax deductible is a misleading statement. There is no such thing as a tax deduction on an IRA or a 401k. It is a tax postponement, a tax deferral. It's really important to remember that while you're working and you're saving money in these vehicles, you get this tax deferral, which lowers your current taxable income. Now, get into retirement, and now you're no longer accumulating money in those IRAs and 401ks. Now you're actually drawing money from them, and you no longer have the IRA 401k contribution as an income offset. Now, all of the income from that IRA and 401k or whatever it is fully taxable, 100% taxable. And okay, so that's a big deal. So no, we don't have any mortgage and we have no tax offset for the deferred income taxes. All right. Now, what about kids? In our working years, accumulating wealth, going up the retirement mountain, we've got kids. Many of us have kids. I have a kid, one daughter who's now 18. She's still on my dole. Okay. So children are a legitimate income tax offset. They're an actual deduction. They're not a deferred tax postponement. You literally get income tax benefits as you raise children, and those children go off to school and various other things. There are tax benefits to offset income taxes for having a family. Now, ideally, in retirement, you don't have any kids on your dependent tax list, so you don't have children to deduct anymore. You don't have a big family or any of those deductions anymore. So in retirement now, we've lost mortgage, IRAs, kids. We haven't lost the kids. Hopefully we know where they are, right? But they're out on their own, hunting and fishing on their own. Finally, another thought is this. Some of you might own a business. You might have a business, whether it be a sole proprietorship or an S Corp or a C Corp, a large company, a small company. Businesses offer some really nice income tax treatment for the owner of the business, where we can use the business to offset and take some income in different ways, and our income might not be fully taxable at ordinary income tax rates, where we can use legitimate accounting and income tax planning when we own a business. Now, in retirement, on our distribution phase, we probably don't own that business anymore. So now we don't have any offsets that we can use against the business to reduce our taxable income. So when Mary Beth Franklin talks about the marginal income tax rates being super high in many cases for Social Security recipients, it's true. I mean, it's shocking, as she said, but it's true. We don't have in retirement the income offsets that we had while we were working. And if we've got the double whammy of Social Security income and we've got to take money out of IRAs and 401ks because of the required minimum distribution, you can easily run into a very high marginal tax rate on the top part of your income. It's a pretty significant amount. So it's not to be taken lightly. The idea of being in a lower tax bracket in retirement, I personally believe it's a myth. That if it's not. How about this? Let me back up. If you're okay with, as we talked about in the first segment, if you're okay with reasonable withdrawal rates and living below your pre-retirement income and cutting your lifestyle back and living on less, yeah, maybe you could shoot for a lower income. But hold on a second. If you're taking lower income and have a lower lifestyle and lower taxes in retirement, doesn't that mean that your retirement income plan failed or came up short? How about an alternate goal? I wouldn't mind actually paying higher taxes in retirement because it means that I'm getting a really good, healthy income to support my retirement lifestyle. There are ways to offset income for sure, and I'm going to cover that here in just a sec. But wouldn't the better goal be, I want as much income as I can possibly get. And if I can get some of that in a tax-favored way, great. But I want as much income as I can get. Government can keep their piece, but I want to keep as much as I can get so that I can have the lifestyle that is as good as it can be. Whatever that might be for each individual, that's my goal when I'm working with a client is, whatever your best possible lifestyle outcome is, I want to help you get there. I don't want you to settle for less. So what can you do? What are some of just a couple of quick examples to change your tax position in retirement? Well, one of the ways that you can really change and affect your income is by taking your Social Security later. You can delay Social Security if you have a plan to draw income from other vehicles to cover your lifestyle. One of the ways that you can increase your income over time is to delay taking Social Security by taking income from other sources. You can use income sources, things like reverse mortgages. You can use dividends that might be taxable, but at a lower income tax rate off stocks and mutual funds. Sometimes you can have tax-free bonds. There's a variety of different ways that investments can be positioned to pay a tax-favored income that might fill in the gap while you wait to take your Social Security. That's just one basic idea. The other one is one that's missed in most conversations with the investment community. You rarely hear them mentioned the actuarial side of the asset classes that are actuarial in nature. Things like guaranteed annuity. Guaranteed annuity is basically an income account from a life insurance company. Now, if you have an income annuity, a guaranteed income annuity, that is non-qualified, meaning that it is not an IRA, it's not a 401k, it wasn't tax deductible. If you have one of these kind of accounts, there is a benefit to taking income from a guaranteed annuity, and that is called an exclusion ratio. So this is really important, that the guaranteed annuity offers this tax treatment that there's no other income vehicle that I know of that offers this kind of a benefit in the tax code. And what it says is that when you give a certain amount of money to a life insurance company, and you ask that life insurance company to then give you a guaranteed paycheck. So I'll use my mom as an example. My mom has given me permission to talk about her on the radio. So my mom has 2 guaranteed annuities. Literally what happened was she handed over a certain amount of money, actually quite a large sum of money, that she handed to an insurance company because what she really, really wanted from that money was not to go buy stuff. It was to get an income, a paycheck, basically something like a personal pension. Go figure, the name of the show. She wanted something like a pension so that would give her guaranteed income. Now, when you hand over that certain amount of money, The insurance company then says, okay, we're going to give you a guaranteed income, a guaranteed paycheck that is based on your age and your expected mortality. So because the income is based on mortality, there is a special tax code treatment of that income. And in the tax code, it's referred to as an exclusion ratio, that a certain portion of the retirement income is excluded from tax because based on how long the payments are expected to last, the IRS considers a certain percentage as a return of principal and therefore non-taxable. It's a very interesting nuance in the tax code that when you look for ways to reduce your taxable income in retirement, it's not always going after less income. Sometimes you have to get your income from the right source, and you might actually get a larger paycheck with a lower tax bill associated with it. So a guaranteed annuity that is not an IRA can offer this exclusion ratio provision. So there's a lot of details that go into how you put those together, and I'm not giving annuity advice here because there's lots of various annuities out on the market, but the exclusion ratio is a great tax planning benefit that most, the investment community, I should say, just don't ever cover. Because remember, if you move money from the investment world into a guaranteed annuity, that takes money out of the investment world, and the investment world doesn't spend much time teaching us how to take money out of the investment world, right? So if you ever have questions about that, my mom loves her guaranteed annuities. I'll tell you right now that she just loves her guaranteed income. She never misses a paycheck. Of course, the income is based on the paying ability of the insurance companies, but they just give her a great deal of security. Okay, so that leads me to the last segment for today. I actually want to add this in because I've just had some great experiences recently with new clients and clients of mine that I just want to share some success stories, I guess, client stories. Now, I have changed the names to protect me. Okay, the names have been changed to protect the innocent. You hear that all the time, but I've changed the names and some information about these folks to protect me, right? To make sure that I'm not disclosing any information that I shouldn't be. So the first one I want to share is actually a doctor and a librarian, husband and wife. Husband's a doctor, wife is a librarian, and these folks are actually in their 60s. And just through various turns in life, including the big recession, their retirement plans, which were previously based on conventional wisdom, Monte Carlo advice, which is the answer to retirement is save more money, they just kept saving, and they had saved a good deal of money, very good deal of money. And then the recession came in and wiped out a big chunk of that pool of money. And one day in a business meeting, this doctor happened to be there and heard me mention the Monte Carlo simulation. As you heard me mention it up above, that's that Vanguard retirement nest egg calculator. And he heard me mention this Monte Carlo simulation, and it really caught his attention because he had never heard about it before. And he actually went and ran his own numbers. He went to the Vanguard website and he ran his own numbers. And he and his wife were both very actually depressed, really upset, because no one in their investment advisory team or relationships over the years had ever mentioned how they should think about their income. And when they found out what their Monte Carlo income would be, there was so much disappointment when they reached out to contact me to say, hey, that we'd like to talk to you. Maybe just come visit us. So I actually went and visited with this couple, and we sat down to just look over what they'd come up with. And yes, actually, that's the Monte Carlo income was quite disappointing. right? Their Monte Carlo income on a significant amount of investment assets was somewhere around $36,000 a year. $36,000 a year was considerably less than they had actually hoped for or planned for. They thought it was going to be way different. They were thinking much higher. Now, once we were done rebalancing their savings and rebalancing their various different components. So these folks actually had 401ks, they had investment savings, IRAs, they had life insurance, they had various things that had never been actually coordinated and balanced together. So once we were done shuffling the deck a little bit and just rearranging and making sure that the proper balance was in place, their new income target is about $20,000 a year higher. Now, I would love to say that it would be substantially higher, but the reality is they're very short and close to their retirement timeline. So there's not a lot of time to fix it. But can you imagine, within this short period of time, having met this couple, we went together through their retirement income plans, and we went from this really disappointed, oh my gosh, we're going to have to work until we're 1,000 years old, to actually, when we add Social Security into the mix, to be over $100,000 a year now as their retirement income target. Wow. And with this particular couple, they're actually considering in the future moving to a retirement community and using a reverse mortgage to buy a house in a retirement community so they can keep a large amount of the proceeds from their current house in their retirement income pile so they can have that money to enjoy in retirement. So we went from being really disappointed for this couple to actually having hope that they can retire and maintain a lifestyle together. And I love that. I'm so excited to be able to help them change the perspective, and they're just both thrilled. Now they've got something to shoot for instead of something to kind of, ho-hum. We'll continue to plug away. The final one I want to share today is it's one that I really love because it reminds me so much of my dad. This is actually a self-made man and a patient wife. I'm going to call that the self-made man and a patient wife. So this is a really hardworking concrete contractor who started literally from the bottom. The guy that was just brand spanking new, green thumb on a concrete pouring jobs, just working back-breaking labor as a young man. And he worked hard enough that his wife has been able to be at home raising their kids. They got four kids. They got 4 kids, and she's been able to stay home with them their whole married life. And the kids are now up in their 20s, and they're mostly hunting and fishing on their own. And this guy, though, back-breaking labor to start off, but yet actually was able to, with the support of his boss in his concrete business, was able to branch out into a specialty type of work. And the boss was very supportive, and actually so much so started using him to manage the specialty aspects of certain jobs. And his business as a young man grew into what it is today, which is a multi-million-dollar business. A small business, though, but still several millions of dollars in sales. And I'll tell you, having met him just recently, you can tell that he has worked really hard. I mean, it's one of those things where you know that his body has been really physically worked because of the type of environment that he has come up in. And when he looked at his income planning, and I met this person after they were introduced by one of their advisors because his questions were, man, I need to get out of this business and slow down. I need to, now he's not doing a lot of the wheelbarrow work and lifting blocks and pouring cement and all that nowadays, but still, it's very stressful, and he's just feeling like he needs to stop. He'd like to stop. He's in his mid-50s, and he'd like to be able to slow down and transition to something else. Maybe go back into consulting or some sort of an ancillary position that's not being the boss, so that he can feel less stress. So when they ran their income projections with their investment advisor, they have investments with a large, well-known brokerage firm, and when they ran their investment income projections, actually, what kind of advice do you think they got? Sure enough, it was the Monte Carlo simulation. That's the standard conversation, and the Monte Carlo simulation came back with an income that was below where they are now, substantially below where they are now. Now, these folks earn today more than $127,000 a year. They live on that. They enjoy their life together. They work, they work really hard as a team together. Okay, and $127,000 was the actual Monte Carlo income simulation that was given by their investment advisor. And that was really disappointing, because the next question that he and his wife asked was, well, that's not enough. What do we need to do to increase that number? How do we increase that number so we can retire in a couple years? That's what we're looking for. Well, the answer was, well, you need to save a lot more money. You need to save, and invest. And of course, for the two of them who still want to live and have a lifestyle, well, that means that they would have to cut out traveling together. They'd have to cut out some of their trips, to their favorite lake destinations and the river, if they were to save as much as was being recommended. So, not being satisfied with that, they asked one of their advisors for an introduction to someone else who knew me as the income engineer, and we got together and reviewed their situation. And what I found was, even though they have a short time, really short horizon, that with the right balance between their assets, okay, investments, savings, life insurance, annuities, their business assets, real estate, you name it, all of these things have to be balanced in an integrated approach. Their new income target is $193,000 a year. $193,000 versus $127,000. It's a $66,000 a year increase. And how much extra do you think they had to save? Yeah, that's right. Nothing. It wasn't extra savings. That's the secret. It was that additional savings was not the answer. It was the proper balance and where they hold their assets and how they plan to use their assets and leverage their assets against each other. That's the key. It was not a product or saving more money that was going to fix it. So I really love this kind of engineering where I'm going to be able to sit down and I think really legitimately have a conversation with these folks to say, yeah, you know what? Getting out in 2 to 3 years, I think it's entirely possible. Entirely possible, where before it was totally impossible, and the only answer was to cut your lifestyle dramatically today and save a ton more money. So 2 really quick success stories. Some of the things that I get to do with the clients that I work with, I just love that stuff. So that'll wrap it up for today. Love everybody being here. Really appreciate the audience. Thank you for the great reviews on iTunes. Take the time, if you would, if you like the show, share it with a friend. And remember, my question standing to you, and I've gotten some excellent feedback and questions. What keeps you up at night? What worries you? What financial questions do you have that haven't been answered? Have you read something or seen something that you just makes you cock your head off to the side and go, that doesn't make sense? I want you to ask those questions. Send them in at personalpensionradio.com, and I'll look forward to the next episode. I hope you will too. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to the Personal Pension Radio Podcast. If you missed anything during the show, that's okay. We took the notes for you. Check the show notes for links, offers, and a full transcript. And don't forget to head over to personalpensionradio.com and download your free retirement income report. While you're there, we'd appreciate some iTunes love. Please leave us a fantastic rating on iTunes by going to personalpensionradio.com/iTunes. Thanks again for listening.